Have you always been creative?
Yeah, I always like to work with my hands for sure. Woodworking, I probably drew more in art class. I mean, in math class than I did even in art class. Yeah, probably should have paid
Reid's the
more
same
attention.
way. He doesn't
Uh-huh.
do numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
math is not awesome for me.
no,
I used to draw like the kiss, the big KI,
yeah,
disease, and then the Van Halen symbols all the time. Those were my two biggest doodles when I was in school.
yeah.
When the math teacher was droning on.
But I mean, that's another thing too. I read this book, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and his premise is, anything, if you put enough time, and it's like 10,000 hours, you can become an expert at it, right? So I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better all the time.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hook.
What's up, buddy?
Eddie,
How are you, man?
I'm good. Loving
Good?
life, living
Oh,
large.
I love to hear that.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm good. It's another great week. So summer's in kind of in full force at this point.
It sure is. Summer is rolling. We already got the heat out here. It's supposed to be like 90 some, I think, today. It went from, I know, it was quick to heating up. So, anywho, summer in full force. My daughter's already talking about going tanning. So, yeah, it's happening.
We still have spring here, which is nice because when summer fully kicks into gear here, it's a little deep, little steep and musty.
Yeah. Hey, you said it's a great week. Tell me one thing you're celebrating.
One thing I'm celebrating. I am celebrating that we are a week away from our big annual GFW, baby.
I can't believe we're a week away, dude.
I know. It's crazy.
That came up quick.
It's that time of the year though where we the text change just a little bit hotter, a little bit more anxiety on what's in your bag, what gear you need, what flies you need.
I know. I got to do full inventory.
Unpack, repack like 6 times just to make sure. So
right. Yep. And we got more gear we got to bring up this week. This year, I mean, we got to bring belly boats and all of that stuff too.
Do you think the week before a trip is better than the trip? Like it's just there's so much anticipation, excitement.
No.
No.
It is anticipation and excitement, but the weekend that we do is the best thing ever. Yeah.
That's true.
So it's the best. Yeah. It's not better. Yeah. It's good lead up time. Yeah. It's like saying, is the night before Christmas better than Christmas morning for a little kid?
Is the day before the date, the first date, the best, or the first date?
Yeah. Yeah. No. The actual show. The real show. The big show.
The big show.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
You're right. But this week's so exciting.
Yeah, this is an exciting week. That's awesome. That is a good celebration. Yeah, What are you celebrating? I am celebrating. Went this past week to sign my son up for college. We went down. He's going to UCCS, University of Colorado Springs, and we went down there and got him for like orientation and signed up for classes. And it was cool. It was exciting. He was getting pumped and jazzed about it. You'll get to this point, but like anytime I go to like college campuses now, I want to regress and be a college student. I want to go back and remember all that it was. And it's like, you get in that mindset and that mode, and it's reinvigorated. It's like, dude, you're going to have so much fun. And I was just like all energetic. It's such a cool thing to do and experience with your own kids. And I went through it with Addie every time we'd go visit her. I'm always like, hey, we should go up to Grand Junction, visit Addie. And Karen's like, we were just up there last week. Let's go again. Yeah. So it's those kinds of things are fun.
Do you find yourself impressing upon them like what you think they should do with like, don't be like me in college, do this. You gotta go to the bookstore and you gotta buy the hoodie and you gotta
I try to stay out of that as much as I can. I try to, I want to go to the bookstore and buy swag for him. I want to get him excited about it. You know what I mean? But I try to stay away from, the dumb shit I did. I want my kids to have their own experiences. I really do. And make it what they want it to be. Certainly they've heard me tell stories about college. They know enough about that. So, but I try to stay out of that. It's hard though, when you're walking around campus, you're like, oh, this reminds me. Oh, I remember when I did it. I remember my first, but I try to stay out of that stuff, to give them their own experience. Cause I don't want it to be like, my kid's walking next to me and all of a sudden he's just rolling his eyes like, oh, here we go again. He's talking about, so yeah. So I try to stay out of that, but yeah, so that's a great celebration for me. I'm lucky that way.
Heck yeah. That's cool achievement. Cool beginning.
Indeed. Okay, so on the flip side, tell me one thing you are navigating at this moment, Ed.
Well, for me, like I mentioned a little bit ago, last episode.
Hey, don't get all somber toned on me. Just navigation. That doesn't mean it has to be sad.
Oh, I know. This isn't sad. I'm just saying one thing I'm navigating. So I obviously did a half marathon on the last episode, and there's a necessary and obvious need to celebrate an achievement as such.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But with that, you fall off the wagon. At least I do. I have not found a healthy celebration yet that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I always find myself drifting into, for lack of a better term, shitty eating. And so I'm in the struggles of getting back on the wagon and navigating avoidance of that stuff. It's not easy.
You took my navigation.
My apologies.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about. And I have gone through, as you know, and the listeners know, in the last 3 weeks, the graduations and the celebrations of all that's happening and changing in my life. And with that comes lots and lots of parties and crappy eating. Yeah, I have been off the wagon of good, healthy eating, which, you gave to me, a couple years ago in terms of trying to eat better and being on a healthier plan. You and the Mrs. Johanna, shout out to Johanna for all of her help and knowledge in that realm. But yeah, and so I have not been a good I have not been making good dietary choices. Let's just put it that way. I like the way you put it, just shitty eating. Sugar's my kryptonite, and Lord knows I have inhaled some.
Isn't it crazy how you just add like a little bit of sugar into your life? You're like, man, maybe my coffee deserves a little bit, maybe even just honey.
Right.
And it just like snowballs. I can't kick it.
It's insane. I got to get one of those ninja ice cream makers you're talking about so I can make some healthy sweets, because I can't keep doing this. So anyway, that's what I've been eating in the last 3 weeks is not sustainable.
You'll hit rock bottom at some point, and that'll bounce you back.
I'm there. I've hit it. I'm already there. I think I'm going below rock bottom, if that's possible.
We'll call your family and get them to start an intervention. They'll sit you down and break you free.
We need it. So that's definitely navigating good eating. So we're working on it.
Awesome. Well, this week we have another great conversation, I think, headed our way.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'm excited to talk with our guy from Casting Feathers and Furs, Kevin Onsrud. Sounds like what he's doing with his artwork and tying flies sounds amazing, and really interesting and cool in terms of creating community. So, I'm excited to get to it, and I'm excited for a conversation with him about it.
Should be great. With that, let's just hop right into it.
Sounds great, dude.
All right. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome, Kevin. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
So we're happy to have you here. We're looking forward to chatting with you. Why don't you start off by just giving us a little bit of background on yourself and what you're up to?
Sure. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I didn't get a lot of opportunity to hunt, fish, and all that stuff that everybody else in Wisconsin seems to do. My dad was kind of a workaholic, so he kept me pretty busy farming and other things. And then I finished school. I was in resource management, environmental studies, but there just weren't a lot of opportunities when I graduated for those fields. So I had some background in history. So I thought, well, I'll go back and get my education degree. And I did that for over 30 years, and I just recently retired. So I moved to Illinois and got the job, met my father-in-law, and that's when I gained a love of the outdoors. And he was a big outdoorsman, fisherman, so it was great. So I've been in Illinois longer than I have been in Wisconsin, probably.
Right on.
That's awesome. What part of Wisconsin?
I grew up just south of Madison, north of Janesville, a little town called Edgerton. Okay. Yep.
That's
south central part of the state.
Madison's one of those kind of magical parts of the Midwest.
Oh yeah, we were a great place between Madison and Milwaukee, and then of course the North Woods was just a long car drive away. So it was a great state to grow up in.
That's awesome. And you were on a farm? Is that where you grew up? And your dad was a farmer? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, we lived in town. My dad worked in a factory. He had a farm on the side, and because his family, we were Norwegian farmers. It's a generational thing. So, and so he just didn't want to give that part up. So we had sheep and corn, and we raised tobacco, 2 acres of tobacco, and it was and hay and all that stuff. So it kept us sure.
My wife's from Minnesota. Norwegian background in farm country in a small town, Princeton. Yeah, up kind of northern Minnesota. So it's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
The farm background.
Do you miss the farm life?
I don't. I mean, it was lonely. I'm a pretty quiet person generally. I'm happy to talk with people, but when you're on a tractor all day, even an introvert is going to have trouble, I think. Yeah. The tobacco was incredibly hard work. I mean, it was just all hand done. We made more money in 2 acres of tobacco than we did in all 40 acres of our corn and sheep combined. So, but it's probably why it was so labor intensive that few people did it. And so it was great, great experience. You gained a great work ethic, but I don't miss it.
After 25 years of teaching, driving a tractor with just like headphones on sounds perfect for a while.
Yeah, everything in perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I need something mindless like that. I could do that for a while, not have to deal with any backlash of anything. Yeah. Has its upsides, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I did it all. I mean, I worked in factories and farms, and so I've had the full gamut of experience. So and teaching, so it was good.
Kevin, how did you survive? You said you taught for 30 plus years. How many years did you teach?
I had middle school, right? 33 years of 7th and 8th grade social studies, and then I had 2 years of sick days saved up, so I was able to retire with 35 years of experience.
How did you survive 33 years? Because I got to 25 and I'm like, I can't even fathom doing getting to 30.
It was in the same district too, and I never intended to be a teacher, so that wasn't my goal in life. I think you just try to make every day new and every year a different year, and we did have a lot of change in our district, which I really like. Right. And you got to understand junior high kids, and if they know you care about them, it's not as hard as people make it out to be. Yeah.
Right. That was one of the things I liked about middle school, because I did my first 3 in high school, but then the last 22 in middle school. And I when I started it, I thought it would be kind of like a temporary job until I could get into another high school. And then 22 years later, I'm retiring as a middle school teacher.
Exactly.
But no 2 days are the same with middle schoolers. That's what I tell people. Like, they're all over the place. So it's like, you don't get that monotony of, that kind of stuff, because they're all over the place, and it's great. It's a lot. Right. It can be a lot of fun. So that's awesome.
You have to embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Now you're doing some work with mentoring teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a program in the state of Illinois, and the union, State Teachers Union had created a program whereby teachers in their first, second, and third year can be assigned a building mentor, a mentor in the building to work with them, and then a virtual mentor, which is what I do. So you just meet with them once a week, and you go over, primarily with junior high, it's a lot of classroom management stuff. But we talk about curriculum ideas and how to create a community within the classroom, how to bond with kids and communicate with parents, and all those things that are challenging for teachers, in hopes that they'll stay with the career, because within those first 3 years, it's either for many a make or break situation, and those first 3 years are the hardest years. No doubt. And then I think they've got me doing some administrative stuff too. So there's some training that's involved, and I have to grade all that stuff. But it's been a great experience as I transition out of teaching.
That's great. That's awesome. I think there's a real need for that in terms of our profession as teachers. Give me a piece of advice as I'm heading into retirement. What would you tell me in terms of what to expect? Because right now it just seems normal. Like, every year we get out for summer, and so everything seems normal right now because this is my regular thing. Taking a nap on the couch on the patio because it's summertime, right?
Right.
But come August, I think that's probably when it's going to set in, when all of my buddies are going back and I'm sending them pictures from the river of me fishing. That's probably when it's going to set in. Give me something that I can take that might help me in that transition.
Well, there's an ebook and a TED talk. A professor, I think his name was Moyers or something like that. But he's got the 4 phases of retirement, and I just listened to the TED talk, but he's also got a free ebook, and his premise was that there's a lot of financial planning information available for people who are retiring, but nothing about how to manage it emotionally. So he says you're going to find 4 stages. The first is like euphoria, you're on vacation. And that typically can last a year, right? But he said that the second stage is the most dangerous, and that's where people get stuck. They start to realize they fear they don't have a purpose any longer. And so they feel this void. And then a lot of people don't get out of that stage. So they just kind of become, methodical about the day and the week and the month and year, and they get depressed. So you got to push through that and get to the next stage. The third stage is like to try to reinvent yourself, or to try to find something that you can be passionate about. So something that might be new or different, or something that you've done when you were younger but had put aside, a guitar or whatever,
right.
And then the fourth stage, which he says, if you can get there, then you'll be completely satisfied and happy. And unfortunately, very few people realize it. And maybe only 10% get there because they just aren't aware of it. And that is to be fulfillment, right? So then you start to use whatever you've developed in your third stage and start giving back to people.
Awesome.
Yeah. Riley Moynes is the guy's name.
Okay.
He was a professor that wrote this ebook.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Speaking of something new and that kind of thing, this whole venture that Ed and I are doing with Guys Fishing Weekend, our whole premise on that is, to build community. And you talked a little bit about that with what you're doing with mentoring teachers and building community in classroom and that kind of thing. And, we kind of connected on Instagram and found you with your casting feathers and fur and what you're doing with your artwork in fishing and kind of that idea. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into fishing originally.
Well, I was always liked fishing, even as a kid, although I didn't have a lot of opportunity to do it. And when I met my wife at the school that I teach, and then her father-in-law was a huge outdoorsman who would take me on these fly-in trips in Canada with these old float planes and drop us off for a week at a time. You didn't see another person fishing walleye and pike and smallmouth. So that's really when I became fascinated with the outdoors and fishing. And then my kids grew up and they wanted to be in scouts, and I wasn't a Boy Scout growing up and I didn't know much about it. So I kind of hung around to make sure it was all okay. Next thing I know, I've got the uniform on and we're doing high adventure trips we did, canoed the Canadian Quantico down through into the boundary waters, and we've backpacked through New Mexico and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I really started to build my passion for the outdoors. And then I wanted to get into fly fishing, but my father-in-law didn't really have a lot of interest in it. And he said, yeah, you go ahead and do that, but we'll still do the regular spin casting stuff. And so he had a neighbor when he lived in Florida that kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot of fly tying and fly casting and that kind of stuff. So then until my father-in-law passed, we would just I'd bring the fly rod wherever we went. So I'd always give it a shot. And I think he enjoyed that seeing me evolve, but he just didn't want to. So somehow he didn't want to try to do it that late in life. But and that's another piece. That's a piece of advice for people. It's don't wait. If you want to try fly fishing, you don't need anybody to help you, but it does help, and it's not as hard as it seems. So I waited too long, if anything.
Right.
You were never able to convince him.
He had a fly rod, and he did horseback rides in Wyoming with buddies, and he just loved spin casting. He had his own. He loved jigging and casting. Yeah. He's primarily a walleye fisherman, and it's a little harder to catch walleye on a fly. Although I've done it, especially in the springtime, it's not that hard.
Right.
But it's hard. These fly-in camps, you get these tiny little boats. You're not going to have two guys throwing a fly rod back and forth in that environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think he embraced it and encouraged me to keep at it. So that was good.
That's good.
That's awesome to have a mentor like that to get you out in the outdoors and show you the way.
Yeah. That helps for sure.
It's even better when it's the in-law, and you can you can build that relationship when that's always a tough one.
For
sometimes
sure,
have as a good one.
Yeah, we were good buddies.
So you stuck with that, and that's seeped into your art style. So tell us a little bit about your art and
yeah, I started out fly tying and putting that stuff on Instagram, and it was just hard. It was so much trouble to take photographs and then upload all that stuff and to get it right. So I just one day I wanted to draw a picture, and I reached out to an artist, and she tried to do it for me, and it was kind of a whimsical cartoon thing. She could tell right away it wasn't what I was looking for. So she says, I'll just show you how to do it. And so she showed me how to do the artwork, and then send it off to printing companies and get that all done. So it just kind of took off from there. And I have a growth mindset. So my goal is to put stuff out there and then get feedback from people, and then keep improving. But now it's gotten to the point where people are reaching out and they want designs made for themselves and for companies. So it's gotten to be a little bit of a business, but it pays for my hobby. Really, I'm not making a lot of money at it, but at the same time, it's nice to have a hobby that you don't have to lose money on.
Right.
Yeah. Have you always been creative?
Yeah, I always liked to work with my hands, for sure. Woodworking, I probably drew more in art class. I mean, in math class than I did right. Even in art class. Yeah.
Reid's the same way. He doesn't do numbers.
Yeah, math is not awesome for me. I used to draw like the KISS, the big KI, disease, and then the Van Halen symbols all the time. Those were my two biggest doodles when I was in school. When the math teacher was droning on.
But I mean, that's another thing too. I read this book, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and his premise is, anything, if you put enough time, and it's like 10,000 hours, you can become an expert at it, right? So. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better all the time. So having that mindset, same thing with fly fishing, pretty much anything, if you want to do it, just try it, do it. and
absolutely,
it's going to be painful, and you might even be embarrassed by what you create at first. But I think people you mentioned, they look through my page. I've got like 700 posts from fly tying all the way down to up to the art, and they can see the evolution. So that's kind of fun for followers to do too.
Right. Yeah. I noticed on your Instagram page, I loved, your post about, share what people are doing. And you were, you made a post about creating a space that's supportive and encouraging, and talk a little bit about that, because that's a real big part of what we want to do kind of with the fishing community and connecting men and getting people together. And so we're trying to do kind of that similar thing. And I think the values there kind of align. Talk a little bit about putting that out there for people and the response.
I think social media has gotten a bad rap. But at the same time, I haven't experienced some of the things that people have told me that they experienced. So I just wanted to focus on the positive aspects of social media. So I've got people that I follow and follow me that are not even into fly fishing. It's just a supportive community. So I try to follow everybody that follows me. And people say, why would you do that? Doesn't it look better if you have a lot of followers and a few people you follow? I'm like, no, it looks rude to me. But at the same time, now Instagram is kind of blocking. They have a limit on how many people you can follow. So unfortunately, it doesn't. I might have reached that limit at this point, but it's great. I mean, and I created a little art community of like-minded fly anglers, and so we support each other. And then if somebody's got an idea, like some people two of them are biologists, and so they do almost scientific drawings, and so they'll get a request for some whimsical thing, and they're like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm going to send that over to Kevin, and he can do that kind of stuff. Whereas if they want something more serious, I'll send them in that direction. And then also just I've been approached by like Casting for Recovery, if you know that organization.
Yeah.
So we did. They said, hey, would you mind doing some designs for us? So we did a tumbler for
nice.
for a fundraiser for a Yeti. It's hard to see; it's etched in there.
Right.
And then
really cool.
we did some T-shirts just to try to raise money for the organization.
Right.
So stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun. And it all really started, Arex, the hook company, are the ones that reached out to me first. Before, I was just posting pictures. I wasn't making stickers or anything. But Arex said they reached out to, I think, 10 different small artists around the world. I mean, they're based in Denmark, so they reached out all over. And they wanted to do a sticker series. And I'm like, I'm not a professional. I don't know. I'm like, sure, just put something together. And then so I did a moose with, it's hard to see maybe in that, but it's a moose with a brown trout pattern on
Brown
it.
trout, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then since I've gotten better, but they were happy with that one. So that's really what kind of prompted it. I'm thinking, wait a minute, these people, are from Denmark and they're talking to me, and then and we got to see where this can go. And so I get requests from, I just got a request today from a guy in Chile. He's putting together a fly fishing instructional camp for kids, and he wants me to do a T-shirt design for them. So he sent me a picture of their location. It's got a volcano in the background. It's gorgeous, and they want a little fish jumping out of it, and they're going to put their logo on it. So I'll do stuff like that, just pro bono.
That's
free,
awesome.
And then they share the information with somebody else, and then it kind of spreads in that way.
Right.
So. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
And I've got people reaching out, just for fun things too. I'll charge individuals, but charity groups or nonprofits, I won't charge them for anything.
Right. That's great. And what a great way to use, like you say, the positive side of the social media stuff. I think, from what I've seen working with young kids, you can you see the negative aspects of that stuff and what does that. So I just thought that was really cool what you did in having people post their stories and sharing some of that stuff in a positive way and being super encouraging with that. And so I'm glad that you've tapped into some of that stuff and that it's brought some things to fruition for you.
For sure.
How often are you? So you're in Chicago. How often And do you get to fish much in Chicago? Like, I'm like,
yeah,
how often do you get to scratch that itch?
Yeah. My brother-in-law and my sister have a place up in Wisconsin at a cabin. So a few times each year, I'll visit with them. We do a fair amount of traveling, so we always try to throw a national park in every year, and so I'll fish in the national parks. Chicago has fishing. I just haven't tapped into it. There's a great fly shop downtown. We call it Shy Fly Chicago, but you can fish the Chicago River. There are carp in there, and then smallmouth. Harbors all over the lake in the city. You can fish. And then, there's an Orvis shop as well on Ontario Street in Chicago. And either one of those places will tap you into where you can go and fly fish, primarily for smallmouth. Once it gets warm, it's a little harder to do, of course. So it's primarily in the spring and the fall. And then Milwaukee's got some phenomenal steelhead fishing. And so these big steelhead come in from Lake Michigan. And then you typically need two anglers. One will get up on the bluff and he'll spot for you, and then you cast into them. And you can get some monster fish. So I've got to do that, but that's on my bucket list. And of course, Wisconsin's got 15,000 lakes, and there's just endless opportunities up there. So, and my family still lives in Edgerton, so and my buddies fish, so I go up and fish with them now and then.
Nice. Yeah, my bucket list, I still got it. Boundary Waters that's on one of my top destinations for wanting to go, just with my wife's family background, and she used to go when she was a kid, and so that's definitely on my bucket list of things to do. Get up in the Boundary Waters and do some fishing up there.
My biggest smallmouth was in the Quantico side, but it was just right on the border, and it was spin casting, but still it was a lot of fun. So the Quantico side is a little quieter. There are fewer people because they let fewer people in, and then there are parts of the Boundary Waters too that you can find some solace, but near Ely it gets pretty crowded.
Right. I imagine that's probably the main entry point. Yeah. Cool.
Back to your art. Do you have like a daily practice that you go about doing, or how do you continue to improve on a regular basis?
I just kind of wait for an order to come in or a request, and then I do my best. There's a lot of back and forth, so people might think you get a request, you draw a picture, you send it off. No, it takes like a week, right? So I draw something, I send it to them all through Instagram, and then they'll say, well, yeah, can you do this, or can we change that? Or so in that I'm getting better. I think it's really the client requests are what make me better. And then if I have some downtime, I just wait for some inspiration to come in. And I'll draw other things besides fishing. Like I just have a passion for golf racing, the blue and orange stuff. So it's a Porsche cartoon. But I prefer fishing themed stuff primarily.
Right.
Yep.
That's awesome. I mean, I find I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I think some of the Star Wars drawings you've done are awesome, right in the trout. And
I don't know where that, I'm not even sure how that evolved, but I got a t-shirt of that one.
I thought that one was awesome.
Yeah, that one's so cool.
It's like the speed, whatever the speed. I'm not even a Star Wars person so much, but I just thought somebody had asked for
things.
You know what it was? Somebody asked for a bull trout. That's what that is, with armor on it. I'm thinking that's a weird request. So I did it, and then it went fine. I'm like, what? It kind of looks like a Star Wars thing. So I drew the guy on there, threw him on there, and so that's been very popular. I hope I don't get in trouble for it. I know, and I changed it a lot, so it's not exactly the same, but
right.
It's been fun.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of people in my family who are huge Star Wars fans. They love that one. That was like their favorite by far. Stuff.
And then I just started getting into prints too. I've not tried that yet, so sometimes I'll grab an idea off the internet, and so this was a guy's post. He just made a post of a fly. It was blue, all blue. And then one of my followers, not even a fishing person, her husband was in the military and said, "Hey, you got to do a Memorial Day themed fly." And I said, "I haven't thought about it." So I basically try to recreate his design in different colors and then put a flag in the background. And then he wanted a copy of it. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So I just figured out how to do the prints, and then sent one off to him. He's going to give it to his dad, who runs the company for Father's Day. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, like awesome. It's just kind of, the whole thing just kind of evolves as we go.
Right. Well, it's that sense of community, right? People reach out. Right. Here's what it is, and your willingness to do that and create for them. Those are the kinds of things that we love, and that we look at and want to create more of. Those kinds of social networks where we can lean on each other when we need or want something, and your willingness to do that is just really phenomenal. I think that's great. That somebody reaches out to you and you're willing, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, right.
And I think we need more of that in our communities, and the willingness to do those things. So I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you how to foster it. It just kind of happens, I guess.
I think there's an organic piece to it, right?
Yeah,
that you put yourself out there, and I think like I say, to start with your thing on Instagram about, hey, let's create a space where it's encouraging. You put it out there, and then the people who want to be a part of it will, and then you let it organically go from there. And I think that's, like I say, I don't think there is a formula, right? You just kind of have to find the people and tap in and try to do those things. So, kudos, man. That's awesome.
So if we were to come do a trip in Chicago or in the surrounding area, we're coming up to fish with Kevin. What would a weekend, 4-day, 3-night? Yeah, where are we headed?
Well, for fishing, I mean, ideally, if you want to trout fish, you'd want to go to what's called the Driftless area. If you can see the map behind me in Wisconsin, but it would be in that corner right in there, where Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin meet, in a little bit of Illinois. It's called the Driftless area. It's a hidden gem in terms of fly fishing. It's narrow streams. They're spring fed, so they're a lot of grass. It's challenging fishing. The fish tend to be able to sense that you're on the way, and then they scatter. So you gotta. It's almost like it'd be pretty stealthy. And you can get into the rivers too, here and there. What's nice about Wisconsin is once you're in the water, it's public land. So there's no it's not like Colorado where there's private rivers.
Right.
The challenging part is the access. You can't walk across somebody's land to get to the river. Like in Viroqua, there's a great shop called Driftless Angler, and they'll give you a map and show you where all the easements are. They even have little steps over the fence in the farm road. The farmer says, if you don't, as long as you don't mess up anything or let the cow out, I'm good to go.
Right.
With 11 people walk across my land and fish. So, and there's some sizable trout in that area too. But it's just kind of a fun thing to think that there are great trout fishing opportunities outside of Wyoming and Montana and Colorado.
Right.
In fact, they say there are more blue ribbon streams in the state of Wisconsin in terms of mileage than anywhere in the world. I mean, in the country. But they're just not big, dramatic rivers. They're little tiny creeks. It's spring creek fishing. Yeah, so it's not for everybody. But it's becoming a destination for people out west. If you can imagine, I can't imagine this, but evidently people get tired of fishing in the beautiful places like Montana, Wyoming, or whatever. So they look for a different challenge, and so they're heading this way. So hopefully it won't become too popular.
Yeah, no, we tend to. Well, I tend to certainly fish the smaller. I'd rather bushwhack and go up and get away from people on the big rivers and go, brookie fishing, and do those kinds of things. That's definitely I love doing stuff like that. So certainly I've watched my fair share of videos of guys pulling monster fish out of spring-fed creek. So, spring creek fishing, yep, I'm in. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I love alpine fishing, and the few times I've gotten to do it, where you head up past the tree line, and they're tiny fish, but there usually are a few people, and it's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, you get away, and the scenery is unreal. So that never gets old.
Exactly. There's a great quote. Somebody asked a guy, I forget who it was, why do you fly fish? And the answer was because trout don't live in ugly places.
It's true.
Full on, 100%. Yep. Yeah. And that's part of part of what we're trying to do too is get into some different kinds of fishing. I'm definitely a trout bum for sure, 100% living here. That's predominantly what I do, and don't do enough of other kinds of fishing. So, I'm excited to start exploring some different stuff and go fishing more for, I've caught some bass and some more warm water fish on flies. Certainly getting into more of that and saltwater fishing and doing some different kinds of fishing. And not just solely trout. I want to definitely do some other stuff, which is kind of the fun of this too, is that expansion of, like you say, with the growth mindset, and you can get stuck in doing what's comfortable. And, but I definitely want to go learn how to do other stuff and catch other species of fish. So, that's part of the whole plan, and the idea of it.
I'd love to catch a muskie on a fly sometime.
Right.
I've only caught one muskie. We got tired of casting flies, so I just threw on a MEP spinner, and then bam, it got one. It was the only one we caught all weekend. So
wow,
it was great to catch a muskie, but it would have been even better to catch it on a fly.
Yeah, I've watched some videos of dudes doing like the figure 8 right by the boat with a lure that attracts these giant muskies up or something like that. I don't know. It was like crazy.
You got to do it with the fly too. The muskie tracks the fly from behind. Like here's an example. The fly is not within they have peripheral vision, but they don't have much forward vision. Okay. So what they do is they feel the vibration. What they need to do is make it turn so they can see this is their eye. They have to see what it is. And so when you figure 8, you give them plenty of opportunity to put that fly or lure in their vision. You don't always see the fish, but you just assume that they've tracked it, and now you need to show it to them, and that's why you would figure 8. Even with a fly, you have to do that.
Right, right.
And sometimes you can see the muskie, and you'll figure 8. Oh my God, that's so intense. But then they won't just swim away. Yeah, and they'll just swim away more often than not. And my son caught a huge one. We got it up to the boat, but it was on a walleye, so we were just walleye fishing. And that's typically how people catch muskie. You'll see these people with huge muskie from Canada, and then you're like, wow, man, what do we got that on? You got it on a sucker. They just flop a sucker out there full of treble hooks, and they sit there and wait for, and then they take a picture. So it's to cast purposely and to catch a muskie is a rare thing. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. Prove me wrong, somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Girac writes about some muskie, some really long days of muskie fishing because it doesn't, to your point about that. Yeah. So,
like I said, we spent the time I caught one was a weekend in the prime spot. It was a private camp called Dairyman's in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin, muskie capital of the world. We caught one small muskie the whole weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you caught it.
Yeah, I caught it. And other guys, everybody else had caught muskie before. They were just happy that finally Kevin got one. So,
right. Yeah. Good. That's good. That's good.
And it was on the world's number one lure, MEPS. If I ever get stuck, I'll throw that on every time.
Give me a MEPS.
Yeah.
Nice.
You mentioned that you have kids and your son. What's fishing like with him, and what's that meant to you?
I have 2 sons. They're not into it. They would go with us. We would do some boating trips with the family, like my father-in-law and his brother, so their uncle and grandpa. They liked that, and they liked it if they were catching fish. So we had to put them on a place where we're smallmouth fishing, especially like a Namakan Lake, just over the border in Canada, was great smallmouth fishing. So they were good with that. They just didn't develop a passion for it yet. My son just had a baby. She's 9 months old. And so His father-in-law, thank you. His father-in-law is a big fisherman, and they live in the Cleveland area. And so I think he's already asked for some gear, so I filled up his car with stuff last time he was home, and so I think it'll happen. For me, it didn't happen until later in life either. So
that's how it starts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for mine too. Like I have 2 daughters and a son, and kind of none of them have really taken to it yet. And I keep saying that like yet because I'm hoping that some way, shape, or form they'll start tapping into it.
And I've done a lot of reading. They say you don't want to push them. You don't want to force them into it because they'll just hate it. So you have to be patient and wait for them to come around. Yeah.
That's the gateway drug, is to start stealing your dad's fishing gear, and then it's a slippery slope into a lifelong of debt-filled fishing supply buying. So
yeah, but it's so fulfilling too.
That's true. It's worth it.
Yeah.
So if we were headed out to the Driftless area, where would we eat? Where would we stay? Things like that.
Yeah, I've just done camping and stuff. A fun little town. It's a tiny town. It's just a Norwegian town called Verokwa, and that's where the Driftless angler is. And so, they've got they don't have much for restaurants and stuff like that. So, a lot of people will camp. There are camp areas in there, and then there are a few little lodges, resorts, and hotels too. It gets pretty booked up. So you probably have to do some advanced planning. So it's not going to be a gourmet glamping kind of a adventure. They're hardcore fishermen. That's what they're there for. So
we're all about that. What would Kevin cook?
We do.
Yeah.
What would Kevin cook us at camp?
I like a Dutch oven, chicken and biscuits. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty simple. A couple cans of chicken cream of chicken soup, frozen vegetables. Put some of those not crescent rolls, but the round rolls on top. Pop it in the Dutch oven. Get a little coals on bottom and top. Get it up to 350. Yeah, get her. Dang. Yeah, something simple.
My mouth's watering already.
Yeah.
I'm in for camping with Kevin.
In our Boy Scout troop, we got a little tired of just kind of doing the same thing as the kids got older. So we got into the high adventure stuff. So my real passion is backpacking. Bring as little as possible and make sure that everything you bring has like 7 purposes. Otherwise, it doesn't come in the pack. So that's my favorite kind of camping. I don't really enjoy car camping much. It's too much cleaning and too much dragging stuff across the field.
Absolutely.
But if you have to do it.
How light can you get your pack?
Well, it was pretty heavy still because you had to bring you had like 10 kids with you, so it was first aid, and so it was 40 pounds. Yeah, I didn't invest in all the ultralight stuff.
Yeah,
but still, you're there in New Mexico in Philmont. This camp was called Philmont. It was a 10-day trek, so you could resupply your food every 3 days at a station. But in Canada, 100-mile, almost a 10-day trip, was a 10-day trip. You couldn't resupply, so you had to bring everything. And that's a little different, portaging all that stuff over the portages. But I think I enjoyed that even more because it was just great. And of course, you got to fish.
Reid and I always talk about how awesome it would be to not ultralight necessarily, but definitely backpack, bushwhack, take 10 car rods and stuff like that up to the high alpine lakes and do some excursions like that would be an awesome time.
For sure.
Yep. Haven't done anything on a 10-car rod, and that's something that's on our list of things to try. Alpine lakes would be a fun way to do it, bushwhacking little creeks and things up to that. So, yep, I think that's going to be on the list for sure.
Do you have a dream trip that you've always wanted to do that you haven't accomplished yet?
I mean, I'd love to go to Switzerland. I don't know how much fishing is there, but that would probably be my dream trip. When I retired, we had thought about it, but we went to the Canadian Rockies and hit all those parks instead. Mm-hmm. And I don't regret any of that. But alpine fishing in the Alps would be dream.
I'm sure there's fish.
I'm sure there are. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In fact, there's a great book, James Prosek. I don't know if you know him, but he's an artist. But he wrote a book called Fishing the 41st. So he took the 41st latitude parallel line and then traveled around the world at that point, because he said that's, in his research, that's the prime window for trout. Every country he was able to, he caught a different fish, photographed it, and then painted it. So, I mean, he was like in Afghanistan, some crazy places. Wow. This is the book. This book is actually just the artwork, but the book itself is just like a travel log kind of. It's just a regular book of Fishing the 41st. But
what a cool concept!
Cool concept and cool stories. You know, right. At one point, I think it was in Afghanistan, and this was I think the book came out in 2003. It's an older book, but he had to have like armed guards in certain places. He meets in France. He's in France, and he meets this guy in Paris. He's an ichthyologist, this little old guy in an apartment, and he's world renowned evidently. So he gets to his apartment, and it's just like dust-covered books and pictures of fish everywhere. And the guy's an old cranky guy, and he's trying to convince him to help him with this project. And the guy didn't want to kill any fish, so he says, "I'm not going to help you." And he goes, "Look, I'm not going to kill him. I'm just going to take a picture of him." And so he goes, "All right." So he grabs flippers. This old man grabs flippers and a mask and takes him down. I think it was the Seine River, but somewhere within Paris. And then he says, "You come down with me, and I'll point them out, and then you can go back up and try to catch them." So they ended up catching a couple, took a picture, and put them back. But it was a really cool story. Yeah, so it's a great book if you love traveling and you love fly fishing. Yeah,
definitely check that out.
But a lot of these species were they're endangered. So his goal was to try to document them through his artwork.
Oh, that's such a cool concept for a book. Love it.
Super cool. Yeah, I'm surprised more people don't know about it.
We'll definitely have to check that out and put that in the show notes as well.
Indeed.
So what has the fishing community meant to you throughout your years involved in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think fly fishing, for some reason, and I don't know what it is, but they're so willing to share and help you, right? It doesn't seem like there's any competition. When I was a kid, it seemed like it was kind of a highbrow, wealthy person's endeavor. And then if you weren't from Vermont or New Hampshire or from Idaho, Colorado, Wyoming, then it was just something that people didn't do. I don't know that was true. That was just my perception. And so I kind of waited till somebody could show me what to do. And that was a mistake because you just have to kind of ask, right? Get out there and ask people. And what I found was they are more than willing to help. I mean, yeah, offer advice. People on the river hand you flies. It's a cool community, men and women, you know. So it's not like other kinds of fishing. Where I fish in Wisconsin and stuff, it's like, and you're hiding your bait. Like, oh, what's that guy catch the walleye on over there? He's got a Senko. Okay, I'm thinking, or a smallmouth or whatever. You know, we got to try that color. And so they're like hiding stuff. And the other way, I mean, fly fishing is like, here, use this.
Yeah.
And I'll give them to you. Yeah. For whatever reason, that's been my experience.
For sure,
and I think the community, the Instagram community is the same way. You ask a guy, how'd you tie that? How'd you get it so tight around the abdomen? And they just send you a message back. Here's how you do it. Don't use so much dubbing. Just use the same color thread. Blah blah blah. Whatever.
Right.
I'm like, okay. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
That's awesome.
How much do you actually tie? How many are you tying?
I don't get to tie much anymore because your boxes get full, and then I'm doing the artwork stuff. But I like to experiment. Like I like to do like a lot of stuff with hair. So this is a mouse. This guy named Royce Dam. He's from Milwaukee. It's all caribou, and you don't trim it. So the way he creates that, so I look at quirky stuff like that, and then try to replicate it. And I love anything with deer hair, like Dahlbergs and stuff like that. So I've done a ton of experimenting, and then the art's kind of taken up a lot of my time. So,
right on.
But, so unless somebody requests something, or sometimes my friends or people I know will go out west and say, "Hey, what should I take?" And I said, "Well, you need to take blah blah blah." "What's that?" So I'll just tie up a couple, and then it's awesome if they send me a picture with a fly that I tied and they used it and they caught a fish. And that, oh my gosh, if followers or viewers haven't tied their own fly and caught a fish on a fly they've tied, that is a really cool experience. So,
it's the ultimate. Yeah, that's the best. I tie, typically in the summers, just because that's when I'm not working. During the year, it's just, with dad and doing all that stuff, I don't have time. I'm the same way. I don't find the time to tie. But in the summertime, I definitely have more. Ed's drooling over that fly, over that mouse pattern that you tied. For sure. We are, we're about to take our big GFW trip up to some lakes. So fishing with mice is definitely on our list of things. And so Ed's big into the mouse pattern.
I saw a video, I don't know, it was probably 9 years ago now, of people going up to Labrador and fishing with mouse patterns. And I just was like, I've got to do that. Yeah. If the day is just dead and nothing's working, even if I know it's not going to work in the middle of the day, I'll put a mouse pattern on just to remember watching that awesome video.
Yeah, I mean, bass love them too. Oh my God! But you probably know this too. The best time is at night. So the darker the better. And they also say, like up in Labrador and stuff, they'll cut the tail off, because what a salmon will do, and probably a trout too, is the trout will grab the mouse by the tail and pull it under until it drowns. And then they'll come and grab it. So as cool as the tail looks, a lot of the anglers will just cut it off because they know that's going to be like a short strike, right? So, But
I still have
try it any time. Yeah, and you can always throw a dropper off the bottom too if it makes you feel better.
Right. I haven't done the mouse dropper pattern yet, but now that you mention it, I'm going to go for it. Yeah, I think a lot of flies are tied more to convince the fly fishermen than they are to convince the fish. So that tail, I can see why it being pointless.
I think it was A.K. Best once said that, you go into a fly shop and all of those little cubbies are just there to catch fishermen. There's only a few that are actually going to catch fish. And your job is to figure out which ones. Yeah.
100%.
But I definitely like dry fly tying, probably the best. And I do like messing around with deer hair, but I like Catskill patterns. And the reason I started the company or the name Casting Feathers and Fur, I prefer natural. I mean, not that I'm a naturalist, but I just thought it's kind of. I think natural fibers and feathers look really cool. I'm not opposed to synthetics. I use them a lot too. But the way those guys, 100 years ago, were replicating these flies, or the guys that did when they would do the
featherwing
full dress. Oh my God! Those huge salmon flies from the turn of the century were so cool.
Right.
So gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
We had some guys on that did a film about fly tying and up in the Catskills, and they talked about our boys at Frequent Flyers, and they did a whole film on the Catskill guys tying, these old timers up there tying flies Catskill style, and kind of that idea of the turn of the century and how it's been passed on to them, and now they're passing it on to the next generation. It was really cool. It's a really cool film. But that Catskill style of fly is such a pretty, it's just a beautiful thing. It's an really incredible creation. That's cool. And
there's a great tyer called Mike Valla, and he grew up in the Deddy fly shop, so in New York. In fact, they reached out and asked for 3 designs. So I designed. They wanted a Walt Deddy's. I don't know. It was a stonefly and a coffin fly, and he had a different version of an Adams. And so I just made 3 designs, and then they put their name on them, and they just sell them in the shop. So, but this guy was a kid. He wanted to. he just wanted to learn how to fly fish, and his mom and dad didn't know how. And so this Daddy Fly Shop was also an inn. And they pulled up one day and said, hey, my kid wants to learn how to fly fish. He was like 14 years old. Is it okay if he lives here for the summer, just helps out? And then they said, sure. And so he grew up, and now he's become a renowned fly tyer. He's got like 4 books, and really cool. And I guess the Daddy people were just, there's the whole family of them. Now the last one, Mary, just passed away. But he's got super good stories and an excellent Catskill fly tyer.
It's that community thing again, right?
Yeah, right.
Here, take my kid, put him up, and I'll help you around the shop.
I mean, it was in his 60s, but even still, I mean,
right. That's awesome. Yep. Yeah,
it is cool.
Those are the best.
Yep.
Well, I think we could wrap up here with some lighthearted rapid fire questions. But
sure,
we recently started asking our guests to give a question for the next person we interview. And so this question comes from our episode last week with Wild Orca, Colton Tidwell. And his question was, deeper than just catching the fish, what does fishing do for you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and or physically?
Yeah, I mean, when we would sit in our boat in Canada, my father-in-law would always say, this is our church right here, because it's just, so I don't know what it is about being outdoors, but it has a healing property for sure. In fact, there's a great book called No Kid Left Indoors. I think it was about the need for kids to spend more time outside, and it not cures, but it can affect a lot of different ailments like ADD and ADHD and all this kind of stuff. And it's just that we need to be more cognizant of it and then encourage more of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a sense that you feel better when you're out there in all
absolutely
aspects.
I know that's true for me in terms of when I'm getting cabin fever or whatever it is, when I'm starting to get edgy. Even my family will be like, you need to go fish. They know. And it is. And it does. It affects your wellness, immensely. I think it has a big impact, especially when you do it often, and then you don't. And so that's when you can really tell. But it's definitely got, healing powers, for me. I know that's true in my life. So that's good. I love that answer. Good question by Colton, too.
Yeah. What's one thing you're currently celebrating in life?
Our granddaughter, I guess.
That's awesome.
Like I said, she's 9 months old. So, yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's your first grandkid?
That's our first. Yep.
Okay.
Our son,
cool.
He's 30, and that's his first
right on
child. Our first granddaughter, and our younger son is just he hasn't found anybody yet. So
right. Yeah.
That'll be a celebration when that happens.
That's great.
Yep.
How's the grandfather versus dad experience been?
They live near Cleveland, so it's a long trip. But we do a lot of video chats and sharing pictures. And it's great.
That's cool. That's good. What's one piece of content, book, video, and you've mentioned a bunch of books already. What's one currently that you'd recommend to our listeners? It could be about anything. Book, video, TV, any piece of content.
I definitely think reading that Fishing the 41st is a fun read, and I've got over 100 almost 100 fly tying books. I collect those. My wife's like, really? Do you need all these books? So I could go on and on about fly tying. So I guess it would depend on the genre. I would say I'm not a big novel person, but my favorite novel of all time is Les Miserables. And that's an achievement when you get through that sucker. It's like, that thick, man. Yeah. But wow, what a great book.
That's like Moby Dick status right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
What is your favorite fishing memory?
I probably, flying into Canada in those old beavers. These planes were built in the 1940s. So the first time I got to do that, I was really anxious. I wasn't sure how it was going to feel when that plane hit the water. That, man, I'm embracing myself. I thought it was going to be like a back-breaking experience. but it was the smoothest landing I'd ever experienced. And these were young people. I mean, I call them kids. They were probably in their 20s. And the first time I went, they didn't have GPS. They had a map that they left on their lap. And they had a radio, so they would radio back. And when you're in the air in this part of Canada, Ontario, it's just, there's more water than there is land. And how are these kids going to find this place? It was a remote outpost camp. And then we got there, and then he gave us, he showed us a thumbs up, like, is this the place? And then my father-in-law, my uncle, his brother-in-law, I guess my uncle by marriage, had been there so many times, like, yep, it's it. And then he's motioning down below, and they knew what he meant. He's like, where are the rocks? Because he doesn't know where to land, right? So that was an awesome experience. As young people can just have the courage to take a group out somewhere they've never been before, and just rely on the people in the plane to get them on the water. So we did that 5 or 6 times, and I think every time it was fascinating and awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
I've read about those trips, and definitely those taking a float plane into some remote place and just crushing fish for a week would be awesome. That sounds like a blast. Kevin, tell me one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were 20, your 20-year-old self.
Yeah. Don't wait. So whatever it is, what are you waiting for? Whether it be learning how to fly fish, or learning to be an artist, or learning to, I don't know, whatever you want to play the guitar. Don't wait, because It's not going to get any easier, and it's not as hard as you think it is.
Right. That's great advice. Could have used that a while ago.
Yeah.
What is your definition of community?
I mean, somewhere where I would say, I guess, you want to be with like-minded people, but even you don't even need that. You just need people who are willing to be open and supportive, even if they have differences, and then willing to help. I mean, I've experienced a lot of communities in various types of my life, whether it be Boy Scouts, the YMCA. You don't think of them in that regard, but if you break it down, that's exactly what they are. So, I've always been fortunate with the people and the places that I've worked and lived. And you got to be a participant, right? Sometimes you have to foster that sense. Don't expect other people to do it.
Yeah, being an active participant's important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of what we're trying to do is create that, a support system, an encouraging place, with Guys Fishing Weekend and what we want to do with our community. So I love that idea of being an active participant, in doing that. And two, we're not all alike, you know what I mean? And so those differences and being willing to navigate those things and being open to those kinds of ideas, just because somebody's different doesn't, if only we could teach young kids the same thing, get them to buy into those things, right? That's what you spent your career doing, trying to build a community like that where, we're different, but we got a lot of similarities too. Step into some of that stuff. I love that. Good answer to that question. Yeah. Well, what a great conversation. And it's been a lot of fun talking with you and your work. Where can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that? Where can people reach out and get in touch with you?
Probably Instagram. I think that's where I prefer communicating through that forum. I mean, I've got a Facebook and an email too, but it's just at Casting Feathers and Fur
cool
on Instagram. So
there we go.
Yeah.
Got it.
You just send me a message and I'll get back to you within a day.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll link all that. You'll have a special page on our website as well for make sure people can find you as well. So that's awesome. We really enjoy your art and everything that you're doing. So keep at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. And we're definitely going to hit you up here sometime to go fish in Driftless.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do something like that. That'd be a blast to hook up and do something like that.
Be awesome. It's overwhelming. There's so many places to fish, but they all got fish in them.
Good. Mm-hmm. We'll find something.
Thanks, Kevin. This was awesome. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Great being with you, Kevin. Thanks.
Thank you.
Man, what a good conversation.
That was goody. Yes. Such good insight from Kevin.
Yeah.
His stuff and the way that he's building kind of his artwork and that kind of thing is interesting. I loved what he said about the community and the idea of being active in it and his willingness to come on and give us some insight into those things was good. I loved that part.
Definitely. And I think his sense of adventure and excitement to be outdoors and those trips up to Canada just sound unreal. Flying in.
Yeah, float planes. Yeah, if it's got the word float plane in it, count me in. I'm good. Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, he had me at mouse pattern.
What a cool looking mouse pattern, dude. He ties some good flies. I mean, it looks, I think he gets really into the creative artistry of it, more so than the mass production of it, which I think is really cool. So yeah, should have pitched him to tie us up some mouse patterns for next week for the trip. That would have been cool.
No, now you'll just have to figure out how to tie a mouse fly over the next few days.
Yeesh. I don't know that I'm there yet. My skill level's not that good.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah. True story. No, great conversation, and hopefully, people will reach out to him and we can get, help boost his business and his artistry work a little bit more. Cause he's got some great stuff. You should definitely check him out on Instagram, and we'll post that in the stuff for this episode. But he's got some really cool things, and just to see his development as an artist is kind of cool too. So yeah, good stuff from Kevin. Great conversation.
This is a great week, man. Appreciate the
brother.
Conversations.
Absolutely. Good stuff, my man.
Yep. Love you, buddy.
I love you too. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Bros before bows, baby.
Yes.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our website, guysfishingweekend.com, to check out the GFW merch, sign up for our newsletter, and learn how to get involved with the community. We appreciate you spending even a little bit of your week with us and are glad to have you along on the journey. Stay legendary and happy fishing.